Blues music is everywhere. We hear it in the office, the market, the car. We hear it so often we barely hear it at all anymore. But about a century ago, blues became so popular that it influenced everything from skirt lengths to politics. It was the soundtrack of the 20th century, present in almost every form of music that followed in its wake. It helped grow the national economy and elevate America's position in the world. And its creators are the U.S. corollaries of Bach, Beethoven, and Brahms. Yet today, few people know the saga of the first completely authentic form of American song. So Blues Alley's on a mission to reacquaint a new era with the people, places, and stories that gave rise to popular music as we know it today. But to uncover it all, we've got to take a journey down Blues Alley. This is the Renaissance Tower at the corner of Main Street and Jefferson in Memphis, Tennessee. And when we think of all the places synonymous with the business of buying and selling American music, New York's Tin Pan Alley, Nashville's Music Row, or Hollywood's Sunset Strip, no one ever includes Main Street Memphis in the conversation. But the first commercial transaction that sparked a revolution and began the rise of American music as we know it today took place at this corner on September 28, 1912, at a department store. This high-rise apartment, built in 1968, occupies the place where Brys department store stood in 1912. The city directory that year listed their address simply as Main and Jefferson Northwest Corner. It was all the address they needed. Everybody in town knew Brys. In those days, department stores had a profound impact on the culture and economy of everyday life. First appearing in the 1800s, department stores functioned then much like Amazon does today. A single place where you could just browse at your leisure for what appeared to be an endless variety of products. Most even delivered your purchases directly to your door. Department stores changed the face of the American workforce by employing women, and society at large by offering an acceptable place for females to go unaccompanied by a man. They helped make several American cities world-famous destinations. As recently as a decade ago, Marshall Field's State Street store was still the most visited destination in Chicago. And Macy's legendary store on 34th in New York was for a time the largest building in the U.S. with over 1 million square feet. They really were cathedrals of commercialism with stunning architecture. Most had restaurants and tea rooms, as well as space for special events and appearances by guest stars. They also had music counters where they sold records, pianos, and other instruments. In those days, if you wanted to hear the latest tunes, you had to play them yourself. Music downloads were still a century in the future. Recorded music of any sort was more of a novelty than an industry. Sheet music, on the other hand, was big business, releasing as many as 25,000 titles a year, some selling 1 million copies or more. And that's the business Handy was entering into when he decided to sell the sheet music of his song Mr. Crump at Brys department store in 1912. Of course, there had been other music published in America before 1912. John Philip Sousa, Stephen Foster, and Scott Joplin were all prolific composers in the 19th century. But their music was based in the European tradition, the major and minor scales that had been predominant since Bach. It was Handy's song Mr. Crump that first acquainted mainstream music with the blue note, those flatted 3rd and 7th scale degrees and the chromatic run between the 4th and the 5th, the musical elements that give blues its signature melancholy. And it was Memphians who first heard this new tradition of American music in 1909, and they went wild for it. But the song presented Handy with a couple of problems. First, the shelf life of a campaign song is just that, the campaign. Once the race is over, win or lose, the song's not worth that much. And even worse, the lyric telling Mr. Crump, now mayor of Memphis, to go get himself some air was a little embarrassing. So Handy sat down and reworked the tune without the lyric, and Mr. Crump became the subtitle to Memphis Blues. Then in the summer of 1912, a man named L.Z. Phillips, who managed the music counter at Brys department store, offered to carry the sheet music if Handy would pay for the printing. It was the opportunity he'd been waiting for, At a time when school teachers made about $40 a month, Handy invested $50 of his own money to have his piano arrangement of Memphis Blues printed. On Saturday, the 28th of September, the first copies of Memphis Blues went on sale at Brys' Music Counter. Handy took his final $3 and put an ad in Sunday's paper. This is the actual ad announcing the arrival of Memphis Blues. It appeared as part of Brys' full-page spread in the Memphis Commercial Appeal, Sunday, September 29, 1912. And by Monday or Tuesday of the following week, all 1,000 copies of the sheet music had been sold. Memphis Blues was a runaway hit. Now, to be fair, many music historians point out that Memphis Blues wasn't the first blues song published. Dallas Blues beat it to the Copyright Office by a month. But Mr. Crump, remember, had been written in 1909. It's also widely accepted that Handy based Mr. Crump on an existing tune called Mama Don't 'Low. Well, very few of us know the poem Palace of Pleasure by William Paynter. But most of us can still quote Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet based on that poem 400 years later. And we can still hear the echoes of Memphis Blues in modern music today. Handy and his song Memphis Blues may not have been first, but they were the first significant blues tune. And they became the conduit that allowed a little-known music from the Mississippi Delta to become an international phenomenon. And Maine and Jefferson Northwest Corner played an almost forgotten role in the birth of this new tradition of American music. Blues music had been born, and it was a smash. For Handy, though, the labor pains were just beginning. And that's where we'll pick up next time on Blues Alley.